Hey guys, Elisa Masi here, and welcome back to a Dragon Age Origins Codex video. We've picked up quite a bit, so yes we have. So we may not make it through all of it by the end of it, which is going to be a vast difference from last time. Did Abomination, I'm pretty sure. Have we? I don't know, actually. So maybe we'll go through it again. We arrived in the dead of night. We had been tracking the Maleficar for days, and finally had him cornered, or so we thought. I'm pretty sure I haven't, because I don't remember reading that word. As we approached, a home on the edge of town exploded, sending splinters of wood and fist-sized chunks of rocks into our ranks. We had but moments to regroup before fire rained from the sky, the sounds of destruction wrapped in a hideous laughter from the center of our village. Of the village. There, perched atop the spire of the village chantry, stood the mage, but he was human no longer. We shouted prayers to the Maker and deflected what magic we could, but as we fought, the creature fought harder. I saw my comrades fall, burned by the flaming sky or crushed by debris. The monstrous creature, looking as if a demon were wearing a man like a twisted suit of skin, spotted me and grinned. We had forced it to this, I realized. The mage had made this pact, given himself over to the demon to survive our assault. Transcribed from a tale by a former Templar in Cumberland 884 Blessed. It is known that mages are able to walk the Fade while completely aware of their surroundings, unlike most others who may only enter the realm as dreamers and leave it scarcely aware of their experience. Demons are drawn to mages, though whether it is because of this awareness or simply by virtue of their own magical power in our world is unknown. Regardless of the reason, a demon always attempts to possess a mage when it encounters one. By force or by making some kind of deal depending on the strength of the mage. Should the demon get the upper hand, the result is an unholy union known as an abomination. Abominations have been responsible for some of the worst cataclysms in history, and the notion that some mage in a remote tower could turn into such a creature unbeknownst to any was the driving force behind the creation of the Circle of Magi. Thankfully, abominations are rare. The Circle has methods for weeding out those who are too at risk for demonic possession, and scant few mages would give up their free will to submit to such a bond with the demon. But once an abomination is created, it will do its best to create more. Considering that entire squads of Templars have been known to fall at the hands of a single abomination, it is not surprising that the Chantry takes the business of the Circle of Magi very serious indeed. Next is an arcane horror. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight, a ragged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watched her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar in Antifa City 713 Storm. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin or through blood magic summoning, they must take possession of a body. When a pride demon takes control of the corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command other animated corpses. For an ash wraith. Legend has it that when Andraste's ashes were taken into hiding, some of her closest disciples gave themselves to the fire, that their restless souls might remain to guard her final resting place forever. Whether they are the spirits of Andraste's disciples or merely Fade spirits, the temple that houses the sacred urn is filled with wraiths. Created from a burnt corpse, an ash wraith is a powerful and amorphous opponent, able to lash and smother while being immune to most physical attacks. Even if successfully dispersed, it can reform at a later time. Magic is the only real way to fight such a creature, wind and ice attacks being the most useful. They are capable of creating small whirlwinds that are devastating to anyone unfortunate enough to get close, and their touch leaves a person drained. Corpse. I wonder what corpses are. To anyone who doubts the wickedness of blood magic, I say, with your own hands, strike down the corpses of your own brothers who have fallen in battle to a Maleficar, and then we may discuss morality. Knight Commander Benedictus, in a letter to the Divine, 516 exalted. 546, sorry. The walking dead are not, as the superstitious are wont to believe, the living come back for revenge. They are rather corpses possessed by demons. The shambling corpse, controlled by a demon of sloth, causes its enemies to become weak and fatigued. Corpses possessed by rage demons go berserk and simply wade into their opponents mindlessly. Devouring corpses are held by hunger demons and feed upon the living. The more powerful demons rarely deign to possess a dead host. Desire demon, because we encountered one of these at Soldier's Peak. I remember that happened. In all my studies, I must say that the most intriguing was my interview with the Desire demon. Interview? Really? That the creature was willing to speak with me was a sign that this was no mere monster, mindlessly driven by its nature, but rather a rational being as interested in me as I was in it. Oh, I'm sure it was. It took a form that I would call female, though I had no doubt it could appear otherwise. I wondered if it appeared as it did because I wanted it to, or because I expected it to. She, and indeed I could only think of her as such now, smiled warmly at me and laughed a musical sound that seemed to thrill my old heart. So frightened was I of this creature's legendary abilities to twist the hearts of men, and so relieved was I when I looked across the table into her dark eyes. This was a fearsome creature of the Fade, but as I spoke with her, I slowly came to realize that this demon was merely as misunderstood as we mages are ourselves. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malleus, once of the Circle of Ravane, declared apostate in 920 Dragon. Wonder if the demon had anything to do with that. Of all the threats from beyond the veil, few are more insidious and deceptively deadly than the Desire demon. In folklore, such demons are characterized as peddlers of lust, luring their prey into a sexual encounter only to be slain at the culmination. While a Desire demon can indeed deal in pleasure, in truth they deal with any manner of desire that humans can possess. Wealth, power, and beauty, to name a few. Far more intelligent than the bestial hunger and rage demons, and more ambitious than the demons of sloth, these dark spirits are among the most skilled at tempting mages into possession. Many who serve the whims of a Desire demon never realize it. They are manipulated by illusions and deceit, if not outright mind control. Although these demons are reluctant to resort to such crude measures, instead they seem to take great pleasure in corruption. The greater the deceit, the greater their victory. Only demons of pride prove more fearsome opponents when roused. Their abilities to affect the mind allow them to assume disguises and even alter the environment to their purposes, not to mention the great strength and speed they possess if they should have to resort to more physical means. Most often a Desire demon will attempt to bargain its way to freedom if overpowered. Many stories exist that depict mages defeating Desire demons to the point where a wish can be wrested from them. It should be noted that in such stories, the demon almost always gets the upper hand even when the mage thinks his wish has been granted. Nugs! Hip deep in mad nugs, our screams deafen their keen ears. We will be nug poop. From Songs That Only Nugs Can Hear by Paragon Ebrian. 584 exalted. The nug is an omnivore, common to the deep roads, a hairless creature that is almost blind as well as completely docile. It spends most of its time wading in shallow pools as well as mud pits, feeding on small insects, worms, and, in a pinch, limestone and simple metals. Indeed, the digestive system of the nug is legendary, able to make a meal out of almost anything a nug finds on the cavern floor. Nugs reproduce rapidly, spreading into any niche within the deep roads they can find, and serve to support a variety of predators such as giant spiders and deep stalkers. So too do dwarves make meals out of them. No! That better not be what that nug wrangler is doing with them. Nugs are, in the poorer slum portions of Orzammar, one of the most common sources of meat available. Some dwarves even domesticate the creatures, claiming to find the creatures' high-pitched squeals pleasing. Okay. He better be wrangling them for pets. I'm glad this starts with elven stuff, so that, like, we know. Okay. History of Soldier's Peak, Chapter 1. The Grey Warden's base at Soldier's Peak was built in the middle of the Glory Age, several decades after the Second Blight was ended. Before then, Grey Wardens in Ferelden would take up residence in castles and forts that belonged to generous nobles. Warden Commander Gaspar Asturian desired a fortified headquarters where his forces could train and live. He planned that Soldier's Peak would be a city unto itself. The defeat of the Darkspawn and the archdemon Zazakal was fresh in the minds of the Ferelden people, and many were willing to donate gold to build Commander Asturian's fortress. Soldier's Peak was fully completed within 10 years and dedicated to the Maker in 934 glory. From the History of the Grey Wardens in Ferelden by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. History of Soldier's Peak, Chapter 2. As he approached his 60th year, rumors swirled that the corruption in Warden Commander Asturian's blood was beginning to take its toll. According to reports from that time, the commander experienced terrifying waking dreams and heard his name whispered from the dark corners of Soldier's Peak. It is said that Asturian would spend hours locked up alone in the great hall of the base, muttering to himself, though no one was ever able to make out what he was saying. Many also believed that Asturian began in secret to draw up plans to expand his fortress, adding to it hidden passages and alcoves, all to protect himself from the shadows that pursued him. No one knows whether Asturian was able to complete his project, for his deterioration had become obvious to anyone who spent any amount of time with him. He was quickly replaced by Warden Commander Frida Halwick. Asturian was taken to Orzammar, where he submitted to the calling, the last rite of the Grey Wardens, and went to his death with honor. From the History of the Grey Wardens in Ferelden by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. History of Soldier's Peak, Chapter 3. After Asturian's death, the rumors and theories became increasingly outlandish. One of the more ridiculous rumors told of Asturian's infatuation with an elven princess of lore, whom he was trying to resurrect in a secret ritual chamber through the use of blood magic and the princess's favorite food, raspberry jam. That's why the jam gave us a Codex entry. That's why. Oh, that makes so much sense now. Warden Commander Frida Halwick launched a thorough investigation into Asturian's secret plans, but was unable to uncover any evidence that anything in Soldier's Peak had been changed. Commander Halwick declared that the rumors about Asturian were a slight on his memory, and that anyone found repeating them would be harshly punished. The stories were thus silenced. From the History of Grey Wardens in Ferelden by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. History of Soldier's Peak, Chapter 4. There was one mystery, however, that persisted, and this mystery perplexed even Commander Halwick herself. When Commander Asturian went to his calling in the Deep Roads, he did not have in his hand his sword, Asturian's Might, forged for him by dwarven smiths and presented to him upon the completion of Soldier's Peak. Nor did he pass the sword on to his successor or to any other Grey Warden. While some maintained that Asturian had simply destroyed the sword in his dotage, others believed he had stashed it away somewhere in Soldier's Peak. One warden claimed that Asturian had once grabbed him by the shoulders, fixed him with an unwavering gaze, and said, "The sword will remind you what it is to be a warden. Speak your oath to me when the shadows come. You must speak the words." What this was supposed to mean was never made clear. From the History of Grey Wardens in Ferelden by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. Was that the warden's sword that we picked? Didn't we pick up a sword and give it to Sten? I think we did. Can't be sure. So now Orzammar information. Learning about the dwarves. So the castes. Visitors to Orzammar should keep in mind that the hierarchies of dwarven society are much more complex than our own. It is easy to gravely insult a man simply by mistaking his position. Since this can lead to unnecessary loss of life and limbs, I will attempt to mitigate the danger for my fellow travelers. The society of Orzammar is divided into nobles, warriors, smiths, artisans, miners, merchants, and servants. Now, you are undoubtedly saying to yourself, we have all those divisions among our own people. This is a dangerous misconception. Certainly, we do have nobility, artisans, merchants, and these positions are largely inherited from our parents. However, the younger children of noblemen often choose to be artisans or soldiers. The sons of merchants may join the army, or become servants, or apprentice themselves to a craftsman. This is all freely chosen. Limited perhaps by the circumstances of birth, but still chosen. What is a matter of choice for most human folk is dictated entirely by birth for dwarves. No one may become smith who is not born to smith caste parents. A servant who marries a noblewoman will never be a noble himself, although his daughters would be nobles, his sons would be servants, for daughters inherit the castes of their mother, while sons inherit the castes of their father. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. That's actually interesting, the way that, like, they inherit if their parents are of different castes. At least they can marry outside their caste. At least that's allowed. That's what it sounds like it can happen if a noble woman marries a servant. Then, like, intercaste marriage is possible, at least. Life in Orzammar. The dwarves of Orzammar are quite unlike those found in most human cities. Although Orzammar derives its vast wealth from trade with human kingdoms, all dwarves who come to the surface to trade are stripped of their position in society. Dwarven merchants are so ubiquitous in human cities that many people labor under the impression that all dwarves are merchants, or that their whole race worships coin and trade. But these surface dwarves are atypical creatures, the ones willing to give up all ties to their kin and sacrifice their rank in order to conduct business. Below ground, the dwarves are a people obsessed with honor, their own and that of their family. Most nobles incorporate chainmail even into formal gowns because slights and insults often turn deadly. They are a people who revere excellence and strive to achieve it in all things. Even members of the servant caste have been elevated to paragons, usually posthumously, in recognition of remarkable service. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. Brother Genetivi has written a lot. City of Orzammar. Dwarves are lauded for their craftsmanship, and the city of Orzammar is one of their finest works. Orzammar lies at the heart of the Frostback Mountains deep underground. The city arcs outward from the royal palace, which is built around a natural lava vent, continually fountaining liquid rock which both lights and heats the entire cavern. The topmost tier of Orzammar is home to the noble caste, with their palaces fanning out in both directions, from the court of the king as well as the Shaperate, which serves as a repository for all dwarven knowledge. I should know how to say that. They said it a lot in the last main episode. The lower tier is the commons, where the merchant caste holds sway and where the finest works of Orzammar's craftsmen are for sale. In the center of the river of lava connected to the commons by a causeway are the proving grounds, a sacred arena where the dwarves by ancient tradition settled their disputes. Is that where we're going to find Balin and the other guy, whose name I don't remember? The two guys vying to be king. On one side of the fiery river are the ruins of old dwarven palaces fallen into disrepair, which the locals call Dust Town, now home to the city's casteless. On the other side of the river are the deep roads, which once joined the sprawling dwarven empire together, but now, after centuries of darkspawn incursions, are largely sealed off. Nearly all knowledge of this network of underground passageways has been lost, even to its builders. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. The Paragons. As I studied among the dwarves, I became aware that their social system was as rigid as the stone that surrounded them. From the lowest servant to the king of Orzammar, each dwarf has a caste, a rigid social standing which dictates what he may do and how he may do it. What fascinated me then was that the dwarves, stubborn and proud as they may be, have built in a way for even the lowliest dwarf to bypass the caste system and reach prominence. Any dwarf who has made an achievement of significance can be named paragon, elevating that dwarf above all others. To become a paragon is to be recognized as essentially a living ancestor. Your words are considered ineffable, and the dwarves liken you unto a god. Your family, those that you choose to ascend with you, become the founders of a new line of nobility. Indeed, every existing noble house among the dwarves traces its line back to a founding paragon. It is a rare thing, however. In my visit, I learned that only one paragon has been elected in generations. The smith, Branca, exalted for her discovery of smokeless coal. I met the paragon Branca only once during my stay, and I consider it an odd occasion indeed. Surrounded by those of her house, this ill-tempered woman was draped in the finest clothing and jewelry, and was obviously revered even above the highest nobles, perhaps even among the king, yet she seemed to enjoy none of it. The burden of being a living legend is great, it appears. Statues of the paragons are found throughout Orzammar, though nowhere so prominently than in the Hall of Heroes, through which one passes on entering from the surface. It is a breathtaking sight to behold, great works of stone all seeming to hold up the city above. It is meant to impress upon visitors to Orzammar all who have gone before, I think. It is also meant to remind dwarves going to the surface and thus abandoning their brethren forever of all they are leaving behind. From the Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Genetivi, the Chantry Scholar. A lot of times when I stumble over my words, it's things here because the contrast between the text and the background is not as good. So let's see. Characters. Balin Edakan. Third of King Endrin's children, Balin has always... I don't remember how to pronounce that last name. Anyway, Balin has always been considered the last and least of his family. Not the heir nor the favorite, and not as accomplished as either sibling, Balin's most notable trait was his ability to stay out of trouble. King Endrin Edakan. Endrin of House Edakan traces his ancestor. I know I'm saying that wrong, and I'm sorry. Traces his ancestry back to the Paragon Edakan. Can you make me stop? Can you not? Can you stop making me say that, please? Who beat back the Darkspawn hordes in the First Blight. The second son of King Ansgar Edakan became the heir after his elder brother died in approving. The most respected king in 4 generations, he restored conflict with Kal Sharok, the only other remaining city of the once vast Dwarven Empire which had been lost during the First Blight. Oh yeah! There's that thing with the... Yeah. I remember that. In the opening thing, with the narration by Duncan. Lord Pyrrell Harrowmont. House Harrowmont is one of the oldest noble houses, as old as Orzammar itself. Endrin's most trusted advisor, Harrowmont is well known for being an able administrator and the author of many compromises in the ever-warring assembly. Earl Rendon Howe. The Arling of the Amaranthine winds along the sinuous northeastern coast of Ferelden. The walking sea is known for its temper, and the storms that sweep in from the warmer northern waters are sudden and brutal. These are the lands of Rendon Howe. He was born during the occupation, and like many of the nobles at the time, joined Prince Merrick's rebels. He fought alongside young Bryce Cousland, future Tairn of Highever, and Leonis Bryland, future Earl of Southreach, at the bloody Battle of White River. It was the most catastrophic defeat of the entire occupation, from which only 50 rebel soldiers escaped alive. Although he was decorated for valor by King Merrick, Howe's abrasive manners have earned him almost universal dislike among his peers. Yeah. More from Loghain. Let's start here. I might have read this paragraph before, but I'm not sure. He then returned to Denerim and declared himself the regent to his daughter, Queen Honora, demanding that Ferelden follow him against the Darkspawn, upsetting a great many of the bands. His actions sparked a civil war. Loghain's supporters found themselves fighting their neighbors who blamed Loghain for the death of the king, as well as those who simply wished to take advantage of the power vacuum. Keeper Zathrian. Let's see. I'm pretty sure we stopped at the thing of him being nothing like Marethari. So... Long ago, in retribution for an attack against his clan, he unleashed a terrible curse. He summoned a spirit into this world and set it upon the humans who had wronged him. The spirit did not simply slaughter Zathrian's enemies, it transformed them into monstrous beasts. We already know this because we experienced it firsthand, but I'm going through it anyway because it's here. In time, however, the werewolves he had created regained their minds, and they sought out the one responsible for their suffering, turning the curse upon Zathrian's own people. At the urging of the Lady of the Forest, Kahari persuaded Zathrian to give up his own life, returning the werewolves to their human forms and saving the elves who had been inflicted with the curse. Zevran. Zevran is new. So all of this is new. Between the Tevinter Imperium, Rivain, and the Free Marches sits the nation of Antiva. Although it possesses few resources of its own, Antiva's location makes it a center for trade in the north, and the capital, Antiva City, is the wealthiest in the world. Antiva has virtually no army. The monarchy is too weak to support one. Most Antivans would be hard-pressed to even name the current king, as the true power lies in the hands of a dozen merchant princes, each with a personal army and each locked in constant struggle for power against all the others. Anyone would think then that Antiva would be a ripe target for invasion by one of her neighbors, but even the Canari leave Antiva alone for one very good reason: the House of Crows. The most efficient, most feared, and most expensive guild of assassins in the world calls Antiva their home, and their reputation alone defends the borders. Zevran was the crow contracted by Loghain to assassinate Alistair and Kahari. One failed attempt later, however, he found himself at the mercy of his would-be victims. They showed him unexpected mercy, and in return he swore to aid the Wardens on their quest to end the Blight. Witherfang. Witherfang is, according to Keeper Zathrian, a wolf. He is no ordinary wolf, however. He is a wolf possessed by a powerful spirit and the source of the werewolf curse that plagues the Brazilian forest. While Witherfang is hundreds of years old and very powerful in his own right, the only way to end his curse is to cut out his heart and bring it to Zathrian. It appears that Witherfang has two sides, as nature does. One is the wolf, savage and male, but the other is the lady of the forest, gentle and female. Witherfang is both beast and beauty, terrible and peace-loving. The lady has guided the werewolves of the Brazilian forest to come to peace with their nature, as she has. And Sophia Dryden, which, based on the amount of time that I have, is probably going to be all we've got, so we've got more for another one later. Arlessa Sophia Dryden was the young Arlen's rival for the throne of Ferelden. Dryden was a strong and charismatic leader with much support from the Banorn. When Arlen finally won the crown, Dryden refused to relent. She pushed her claims. I might have gotten more of this. I'm not sure. I might have picked up some of it from Levy, but at least most of it would have come from Soldier's Peak anyway. When Arlen finally won the crown, Dryden refused to relent. She pushed her claim, was caught, and accused of treason. Her sympathizers continued to support her, however. In order to appease them, Dryden was spared execution and forced to join the Grey Wardens instead. Dryden survived the joining and dazzled the Grey Wardens at Soldier's Peak with her leadership skills and charm. She eventually rose through the ranks to become the Warden Commander of Ferelden. Before Commander Dryden, the Grey Wardens were seen as a relic of an older time and an unnecessary drain on the nobles' coffers. Dryden, though, with her political connections, reinvigorated the Wardens and rapidly increased their numbers. In the meantime, King Arlen proved himself a devious king, willing to go to brutal lengths to silence his opponents. Arlen's reign of terror grew worse with each passing year, and some of the bands approached Commander Dryden in desperation, begging her to intercede. She agreed, and thus was the rebellion against King Arlen born. Arlen learned of the rebellion and took steps to end it. He publicly suspended all tithing to the Grey Wardens and declared that they were no longer welcome in Ferelden. Some of the Wardens, mindful that they were supposed to remain politically neutral, felt disgraced by Dryden's involvement in Ferelden politics and left her side, even as the king's forces lay siege to Soldier's Peak. The siege took months and ended with the death of Sophia Dryden. Addendum. King Arlen had driven the Grey Wardens from Ferelden, and after the siege of Soldier's Peak, the base was abandoned. When Soldier's Peak was finally entered again for the first time in centuries, it was discovered that Sophia Dryden had been possessed by a demon. And that is going to be it for this time. Just because I'm running a little low on time, but we've got more stuff to read later. So, I don't know when we'll get to that, but for now, if you liked what you saw, leave a like, leave a comment. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Maybe tap that notification bell to get notified every time I upload. See you on the flip side. Elisa out.